was called Skins, and it was published in November in Ink, Sweat and Tears, and it's currently nominated for the Forward Prize. Skins. My mother had a handbag made from the skin of a female cobra her brother killed in the garden. No rick-ticking Kipling mongoose to protect her. Just my fierce uncle, bantamweight in a stained banyan, brandishing cricket bat and torch. Rain slid off the cambered hood. The lady's umbrella snapped shut. Red flickered in her blank black eye as the straight drive landed true. The thick whip stopped mid-strike. Her vast body, bulging coils in a bag double carried to the leathersmith, who stretched it like a family fib. Stuffed venom glands with satin. The tawny clutch appeared on high-heeled evenings only. Slept in a nest of white tissue. The bright pince-nez mark watched from the laminated flap, traced by pink-fanged fingers, each time the mouth opened or shut with a satisfying click. The sound was a soft, hissing salute from one bloodsport queen to another.
Hello, Natasha.
Hello.
How lovely to talk to you about your poetry. And congratulations again on your Poetry Wales Award 2024-2025.
Thank you so much. That really means a lot. I'm so thrilled.
Tracing the contours of cultural heritage is a strong motif in your poetry over and over again, including in your recent Poetry Wales 2024 award-winning poem. Would you like to elaborate on this and what makes you write poetry that is all about heritage, family, belongings?
Yes, so I am from Canada. I was born and grew up in Montreal, which is in Quebec, which is the French-speaking part of Canada. So on my father's side, I am Québécoise. I'm fluently bilingual in English and French. My father's side of the family arrived as colonists from France in the 1620s. So that side of the family is thoroughly French-Canadian, Québécois, very rooted in the Montreal area. My mother arrived in Montreal in 1967 as an immigrant from India, but from Goa, so she was also Catholic. So it was that Catholicism that allowed her to fit into Quebec society perhaps in a smoother way than if she had been from a different religion as well as a different culture. So these two cultures that I grew up with and languages have really marked my work. I think I'm really compelled to describe specific memories, specific situations for things that I feel are maybe not written about enough, especially when we think of Asian heritage, Asian experience. I haven't seen very much writing about Christian and Catholic Asians, whether in Britain or elsewhere. So I feel that that's something that I bring to my poetry. This poem that won the Poetry Wales Award actually started off as two separate poems. So both based on actual things that I observed or that inspired me. So one was this argument between this woman and what I assumed was to be her daughter on the tube in London. And the other was this experience I had eating at a restaurant in London, a part of a chain of Asian restaurants that had these wonderful photographs on the walls, black and white photographs. And I was sitting there eating and I'm like, any one of these people in these photographs could be a relative. And so I was working on two separate poems about these two separate things, and they weren't really gelling. They were kind of very imagistic, but not really developing into anything. And then I realized that it was the same poem that I was writing. So I combined them into one poem, and then that unlocked everything. Because really, both of those experiences were about recognizing yourself in a stranger, having that moment of fellow feeling where you feel like you understand in an instant where someone is coming from, what their experience might be. It's almost like a mirror in a stranger's face, just based on some clue that you're getting from their dress or from the way they speak. And you're like, oh, that person, they're one of us. Like, we're the same, or they come from my culture, or they come from, we understand each other, or I understand them. So that's how that poem came about. This is the poem that won the Poetry Wales Award for 2024-25. Via Crucis on the Piccadilly line. The auntie on the Cockfosters train wears a t-shirt proclaiming Jesus is the way, the truth, the light. I know without needing to ask that a cheap rosary from Fatima or Lourdes tangles around her handbag mints like a string of Christmas lights. A fancier set hangs from the mirror of her husband's Mercedes, Our Lady on her blue bungee, warding off accidents and death. Auntie drones daily novenas for her daughter, sitting shameless next to her. The girl has a Kali tattoo, talks back and has stopped going to mass. They snipe at each other in between stations on either side of the scrimmage line pole in accents my people would have had if they had come here instead of Canada. Later at dinner, my family will watch me eat from their silver frames on the walls of a jazz bar in Kensington. Slight women in saris and beehives, small grinning men draping arms over each other in front of the cricket club in wide ties and high-waisters, or playing baritone sax and upright bass for dancers in post-Raj rooms. Maybe our photos in their striped satin albums fell overboard, floated ashore, found their way to a Notting Hill charity shop to be plundered for atmosphere. In truth, they are not my relatives at all, even though I know their faces, the smell of their Shalimar and cigars, their correct topiaried voices, English roses on jacarandas, just like the sound of this woman and her daughter fighting Christ and the devil on a train to my childhood where my mother waits on the platform, worrying, clutching a prayer book and a slap. I think taking that first step in producing some form of creative writing, which happened a couple of months after I moved here to do a master's degree. So I do have a background in journalism. I studied journalism in undergraduate. I worked as a professional journalist in Canada for many, many years. So I had made a living as a writer, but never in fiction and never in anything really creative. And it's funny because people would always tell me, oh, Natasha, you're a really technically very good writer and you have a way with language, and you're really good at self-editing, and you're really good at telling a story. Have you thought about writing a novel? Is usually how people would approach it. And I always said, well, I'm more interested in real people's stories and in telling those stories and finding out who they are and bringing their stories into the world and in coming up with my own stories. Like that's really what draws me to journalism. And so I'd always push that aside, and I always thought, oh, well, I don't want to be one of these journalists who goes around saying, oh, but really I'm a novelist, like I'm just doing journalism, which is a bit of a stereotype as well. So I always poo-pooed it. And then when I moved to Cardiff to do my master's in political communication, again, not in creative writing, not in English literature, not in anything that you would think. It's a city of poets. I mean, everyone in Wales is a poet. Everyone is writing poetry. Like, there were these poetry nights, and and I just thought, oh, well, let me try my hand at poetry. I mean, I've read poetry all my life. I trained as a classical musician, including as a pianist and a singer. So all of this amazing repertoire of Lieder, of German and French and English and Italian poetry set to music to be sung has been in my bones since childhood. So I wrote my very first poems kind of around Christmas 2022. I'd never written poetry before. And I went to an open mic night here in Cardiff that used to be held at the Moon, called Howl at the Moon. And I read one or two of my poems and got very good feedback. And so decided shortly after, well, maybe I should try submitting them to journals. And got some nice acceptances quite early on. And so each of these steps kind of encouraged me and pushed me on to develop my work as well. And obviously people that I started meeting through poetry. I'm quite outgoing. I put myself out there. And so, I met people like you, Taz, like Gareth Ryder Davies, like Christopher Meredith, this group of poets in the Brecon area. Mike Jenkins, I read at one of his events in Merthyr, and he was quite encouraging as well, and said, "Oh, like, you're talented. You should do more of this." Lee Manley, who I met, who was so lovely, and then the biggest impetus, I think, that has really opened so many doors was this idea I had to have a poetry night in Cardiff. And it started off because I was chatting. There was a wonderful cafe that opened, bar cafe that opened on the ground floor of my flat building here in Cardiff Bay. And I was like, well, we really need a nice poetry night in Cardiff. And I had this vision of what it was going to be like. And actually, I held the first one almost exactly 2 years ago. And Taz, you were one of the first readers. And that just led from strength to strength, really. People seemed to really enjoy those evenings. There was an appetite. Seren First Thursday had stopped holding events in Cardiff, and so there was a little bit of a vacuum for page poetry nights in Cardiff. There's lots of spoken word type events, but this is, for a little bit of a different crowd. And I'm not saying that page poetry is better than spoken word poetry. They're different audiences, they're different types of writing, and I really wanted to create something special. And I can't believe that I've been able to keep it going with wonderful writers presented. Now we've moved to Chapter here in Cardiff, and last month we had Gwyneth Lewis. I mean, if you told me a year and a half, 2 years ago, oh, Natasha, you're going to be running this really great poetry night, you're going to be winning awards, you're going to be, talking to Gwyneth Lewis, whose words are on the building, the Millennium Center at the foot of your street, I would have said you were mad, right? Like, this has all happened in a very compressed period of time.
This poem is called
It feels like
Fixation,
I'm exactly
and it
where I
was
always was
last
meant to
year
be, in Black Iris online journal. Oral fixation. He declares I have Buddha ears, sends out a tentacling hand towards the nearest one, as if he means to pluck it, pearl and oyster both together from the shoal of my head. The man at the bar of the Cafe Sarajevo, twice my age, tells me my long lobes are like two brown banyan pods, that this is a sure sign of being at one with the universe. He gifts me his patchouli nonsense along with a mojito that is too sweet and not cold enough. I have asked for neither. I am waiting for the jazz to start. My ears want to be at one with Mingus and Miles, to feel a jaggery bass line swirling warm inside their folds like peaty scotch. I do not need to look at him. My people were piano tuners and headmistresses. I was born with ears in the back of my head, and all of them, the ears of my ears. Listen, listen for the sound he makes when I take the soggy limes from the perspiring glass and wedge one into each bronze pinna bowl, perfumed offerings to my own temple. So my goals and aspirations as a writer have really crystallized over the past year, thanks in large part to the support and the program that I've been in through Literature Wales called Representing Wales, which I should have mentioned in the answer to the previous question, and of course one rabbits on and forgets these things. But I mean, I wouldn't be here without Representing Wales and Literature Wales and the opportunities that they have given those of us who are in this program. So I was selected for the 2024-25 cohort, which was amazing to me. All of the different types of writers that we have been exposed to, not only for workshops, but really to talk about, like, what does it mean to build a career as a writer? How do you develop your voice? And of course, the essential person in all of this has been the mentor that I was assigned. So Damien Walford Davies, who's been just the best mentor I could ever have hoped to work with, who's been so encouraging and also very specific, who's been pushing me to try different things, who's been, his famous words to me are always, strange it up, Natasha, strange it up. Don't be afraid to go to the strange, because there's a strength there in your writing. And so where I would, sometimes want to play it a little bit safe, he's really pushed me to strange it up. And I've just seen the quality of my writing advance in leaps and bounds with that support. In terms of what I'd like to be doing, I have an ambition to put out a first, whether it's a pamphlet or a collection, with a significant publisher here in Wales, kind of over the next year. I've already amassed a body of work. I think I have an idea of what I'd like that collection to look like. So a combination of these family anecdote, observational poems, with some of my interests in history, my interests in classical music, and some of these characters who make their way into my poetry as well. I'm also thinking about a memoir about what it's like to establish yourself as a writer in a new country, from another country. It's a bit of a different path as an immigrant, because we don't always think of people from, oh, well, Canadians, you're just another kind of British person. But, we're really not. And especially coming from Montreal, and that culture is very different, and that Francophone culture is so deep in my blood. So I think there's some interesting stories there that I could tell from a much more personal perspective. The story of my mother, how she moved to Canada as an adult to start a new life and build her career and build her legacy, really, and how that's inspired me really all my life. That type of courage and that type of personal integrity. So yeah, I think I have big ideas for what I want to be writing about.